Kicking off the list at number 10, Dr. Doom and Emma Frost. The White Queen of the Hellfire Club, starting off as an enemy to the X-Men, but an accident changed her ways. And eventually she became a co-headmaster of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, training the last generation of mutants, Generation X. So she could transform her body into diamonds, which makes her extremely tough, both on the outside and the inside. And as for Dr. Doom, well, he was her boy toy while she still reigned as the White Queen. Their powers complemented each other so well, and then on Earth 807-128, the two of them were presumably married. Holy matrimony, we love to see it. Starting off the list with some nice marriage stuff, there we go. And before we continue on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and give us a thumbs up, just a little quick like, because it goes a long way for us over here. You guys are the best, thank you so much for your support. Back to the list. Number 9, She-Hulk and Juggernaut. Shifting over now to Uncanny X-Men 435, titled The Trial of Juggernaut. I mean, it's standard practice to not hook up with your clients, right? Like if I have a job and then I'm helping somebody, like say, I don't know, if I'm a lawyer, I shouldn't want to hook up with who I'm representing because I would get fired, right? So when Jennifer Walters represented Juggernaut, and in a moment of heroic actions, Juggernaut kind of proves that he's not the worst guy in the world. I mean, he saves a guard from his own wrath. He was gonna kill him, but he's like, you know what? Get out of here. You're too cool, get out of here. Happy Boxing Day, get going now. Yeah, he just let him go, and then he didn't even bother trying to escape. So Jen Walters is like, huh, interesting. Is this the Juggernaut we all know? Why is he like this? Is this a scam? Why did you escape, sir? What's going on? And he's like, I don't know, man. My dad did some rocket scientist stuff. I feel like I've always been a failure. I don't know, women's rights are the best. Let's hook up. And then Jen is now seeing the soft side of Juggernaut, and she's interested, all right? She can read people, that's her job. So she's like, okay, there's more to this guy than meets the eye. Okay, then the next page, the room's a mess. They've hooked up. They had one hell of a one-night stand, literally breaking their nightstand in the meantime. I mean, the bed's broken into the ground, the lamp's busted, the window's open. It's like they want to watch. So you know what, freaky or not, it's still a romance. We won't judge. Number 8, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Okay, this one we might judge a little bit. One of you guys referred to this as twincest in our last video, so I had to kind of take that and put it in my pocket and now bring it back to life, because it's an amazing term and I'm going to use it forever. So here it is. Twincest. I'm referring now to the Ultimate X-Men series. Now, I know when it comes to villains, these two aren't the worst of the worst, but in this case, they're siblings and they're together, which is kind of the worst. Now, I know when it comes to villains, these two aren't like the worst of the worst. I mean, in this case, they're siblings, so they're naturally close. They're together, like a bit too much together. So I have to mention them in this story. So since they were a big deal in the Brotherhood, they were very dedicated to the cause. I mean, a little too dedicated at times. Because we first meet the pair in X-Men issue 4, and then right off the bat, we see Quicksilver defending his sister, like a little bit too much. Because Toad is chewing his food too loudly, Quicksilver's like, ugh, my sister's right there, you obnoxious fool. And then in 2001, the pair were in Ultimates, and then that's when we see this connection, but it's a little bit more connected. Ooh, it's so gross to talk about. So the Ultimates issue had a front cover that made readers do a quick double take, with the duo side by side, hand in hand. And not even like the first date hand holding either, like their fingers were interlocked, like they were like, got that sweaty grip, you know? It was a subtle note, but one that has lived rent-free in our brains ever since. Number 7, Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy. Another gross one, coming at ya. Norman Osborn, who we all know as the menacing Green Goblin, one of, if not Spider-Man's biggest foe. So when we revisit the Since Past storyline, it comes with a shock that it's revealed that Norman and Gwen Stacy were a thing before he killed her. Yeah, villains are weird, I don't know. How did this happen, you ask? Well, it was revealed that before her death, the two of them had an affair, and if that's not bad enough, they even had some kids on the low, some sneaky little kids. Twins too, ironically. This story is crazy. Spider-Man ends up fighting the twins. All the while, he has to deal with Gwen Stacy being dead, and now this new information's in his brain, and he's fighting his own twins, but it's not his twins, it's Norman's twins. Honestly, I feel bad for Peter a lot. This guy goes through the worst time ever. Number 6, Magneto and Mystique. So in the comics, Magneto is a smooth-talking, metal-moving man. He dates other villains like Rogue or Scarlet Witch, but in the Fox movies, we see a new relationship with Mystique. Jennifer Lawrence and Michael Fassbender, I mean, probably the most attractive couple on the planet. Oh god. But by the time we get to X-Men Apocalypse, the two of them have a lot in common. See, they both would do anything to defend mutants. That's their whole deal. That's what makes them kind of evil. They even bond over the fact that Magneto prefers the real her. It's become a huge meme where he's like, I'm talking about the real you. And then it shows like her all blue scaly things and he's like, perfection. There we go. The mutant look. So off the bat, I'm sure she's a fan of his respect for mutant rights. Because in X-Men First Class, everybody else close to Mystique wanted her to hide her true self. They were like, ew, put on a sweater, or look like Jennifer Lawrence. Something better. So when somebody says, hey, be you and only you, it's truly beautiful. I mean, it's kind of hard not to develop feelings. And then in Days of Future Past, there of course wasn't too much going on between them. I mean, that tends to happen when you shoot at somebody with the intention of killing them. What are you, OJ? Get out of here. Number 5, Iron Man and Madame Masque. Now, in the comics, it is no surprise Tony has a long list of lovers. Long. I mean, his charm, his smarts, his everything, you know. The first time we see Tony in the MCU, he's bringing over reporters for one-night stands. This is classic Tony Stark. So him and Madame Masque, aka Whitney Frost, were actually seeing each other for a hot minute, and they got so close that they even knew each other's secret identity. Wild, right? So Tony just loves dating villains. That's his thing. He's like, hey, you could ruin my life. It all started when Tony showed concern over her face, and not in the usual way either. Like, he saw through the scars, which is a great message. It's not always about looks, unless you're Jennifer Lawrence. I can't keep saying that, it's so stupid. Things got to a point where Madame Masque had to pick between Iron Man and her father, and it wasn't an easy task. Now they're still close, they're just not that close anymore. Classic villain stuff. Number 4, Joker and Harley Quinn. Making her first appearance in the animated series, Harleen Quinzel, most commonly seen as the Joker's love life and twisted partner in crime, started off as an intern psychiatrist at Arkham Asylum, and then in the 1994 graphic novel The Batman Adventures, Mad Love, we see Harleen's origin play out. So Dr. Harleen Frances Quinzel started to fall in love with the madman as the days went by. And it's an amazing graphic novel. It actually won the Eisner and Harvey Awards for Best Single Issue Comic of the Year. So if you haven't read it, you know what you're doing right after this video ends. You're welcome. She becomes intrigued with how the Joker's mind works. She volunteers to help treat him. After helping him escape numerous times, it is no surprise that she became his sidekick and lover, donning a jester suit of her own. They're just a bad couple. One of those couples you see in public and you're like, I bet they fight a lot. I bet they fight a lot about stupid shit, for sure. Number 3, Scarlet Witch and Dr. Doom. Our man Doom at it again. Okay, we look over now to the Avengers, the Children's Crusade mini-series, where we have the young Avengers looking for Wanda because her son Wiccan started experiencing reality-altering powers just like Wanda. So we wanted to check in with Wanda to make sure that, you know, reality itself hasn't shifted or anything colossal. So we found out that she was being held at Doom Castle. So after a quick rescue trip, he discovers her and Doom in matching colors. Something's different, they look kind of good. And she's planning on marrying Doom. Ooh. And she doesn't even remember her origin or anything at all. It's just a nightmare. All she knows is that she's in love with Dr. Doom. So Wiccan tries the obvious, right? He's like, hey, you're Scarlet Witch, you married Vision, you have 2 kids, you thought they were dead, but they're actually... And before Wiccan can even finish telling Wanda that they're indeed alive, Doom steps in to shut him up. Doom's like, enough out of that guy. We got a big wedding tomorrow. We should get some sleep. No? I think? I don't know. The Avengers, the Children's Crusade issues 1 to 9 are super fun. You gotta check it out. We love red weddings. Number 2, Thanos and Death. So in the MCU, Thanos wanted to bring balance to the universe. Too many mouths to feed, not enough to go around, or something like that. That was his main goal. He wants the stones for this reason. The comics were a bit more complicated. See, Thanos has always been infatuated over Death. Lady Death, that is. She has all the knowledge of the universe. I mean, she's kind of a catch, can't lie. Thanos, being a Titan, can absorb cosmic energy and then project it. He's a fan of these types of entities. And what better way of getting her attention than wiping out half of all life in the universe? Now, this is a wild couple. Lady Death hasn't even spoken one word to Thanos. She much prefers to send her minions to deliver messages. It's kind of like in class when you're like, hey, can you tell Brittany to tell Beth, to tell Amber, to tell Rachel that I kind of like her? And they're like, you got it. We'll get back to you in 1 week. You know, the cosmic version of playing hard to get. And then when this happens, people start to get desperate for attention. So desperate that Thanos created a female Titan just to make Death jealous. Taraxia has entered the chat. And she's just a big ball of fun, you know? I'm actually a big fan of how she rips Iron Man's head off. That's really... Yeah, you gotta pick them well. One of the most interesting parts of this relationship with the two is the entity created called rot. So when Thanos died, his energy merged with Death's, creating this moving void of nothingness. It was both alive and dead at the same time. It was like this weird offspring. So Death couldn't even sense it. God, Thanos really knows how to pick them. And finally, number 1, my personal favorite, Bane and Talia al Ghul. The Dark Knight Rises was an epic conclusion to the Nolan Bat trilogy. We have Bane mumbling a bunch, doing some football pep talks and breaking backs, and his love interest in the film is revealed to be Talia al Ghul later on. It's a nice big twist, we love it. Talia was brought up by her father, of course being Ra's al Ghul, and was trained to be the second in command for the League of Assassins, or League of Shadows. So Raz's big plan was to get Talia to marry Bruce Wayne, so that there's a worthy male heir afterwards, right? And then in The Dark Knight Rises, she disguises herself as Miranda Tate, and Marion Cotillard did a great job playing her, such a good actor. And it was a nice moment to see on screen, okay? So after Bruce escaped from the pit and returned to Gotham with the intent to stop Bane and save the city, and then as Catwoman says, oh, you're gonna wage a war to save your stuck-up girlfriend? Batman's like, yes. Absolutely. You definitely, most definitely. I've thought about it every night. He's like, yeah, I got this. My back's good. Aim for the mask, you know, pull some pipes out. We're good. Nope. Miranda stabs Batman then, revealing her true identity. Then the audience plays a little bit of catch up, revealing that Bane was her protector and that he loved her. Oh, love it. That plus Talia / Miranda hooking up with Batman, I can see where the anger comes from. It doesn't come out of nowhere, you know? And hey, the best way to fight jealousy is to break backs, and that's just facts. Taylor McGuire. Kicking off the list at number 10, Carnage and Shriek. As for relationships go, I mean, this one's pretty insane. The romance began back in Maximum Carnage from the mid-90s. So when Carnage made a break for it and ran from the Ravencroft Asylum, he left with a handful of other villains, like Demogoblin, Doppelganger, Carrion, and of course, Shriek. They look at themselves as a family, with Carnage and Shriek acting as the parents, if you could say that. Scariest parents ever, also, I'd say. Shriek would use her psychic powers and make New Yorkers go crazy and turn each other on one another. It was hinted that they had feelings for each other in this storyline, but Carnage left Shriek to get captured by Spider-Man, and that's where things really amp it up in 2014's Deadpool vs. Carnage. So Deadpool has Carnage in his grasps, and then bam! Shriek comes to save her man. Yeah, she even says, nobody lays a finger on my man, which is, you know what, you gotta love the loyalty there. Not even the merc with a mouth can get in close. You gotta respect the loyalty. Don't you dare lay a finger on my man, ever. And before we head over to number 9, if you guys could please toss us a like because it really helps us out on the channel. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Also, we have a new channel premiering titled Viper Girl, where they'll be streaming everything from open world sandbox games like Minecraft to all of your horror favorites. So make sure you subscribe because that's premiering January 22nd and you don't want to miss it.
Oh my gosh, I almost died. I thought you were a cactus, my friend. I thought you were a cactus. We've got iron, baby. Yes. Okay, my main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody. Bro, no, I'm gonna fight you with a pork chop. No, come here. This is awesome.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Now back to the list. Number 9, Medusa and Black Bolt. The Inhumans were originally enemies of the Fantastic Four, with Medusa being introduced originally as a member of the Frightful Four, which is, you know, that's cute. But perhaps there's more to her than she thinks. Amnesia does quite a bit of damage. Medusa is a member of the Inhumans, and she's also the daughter of Quinlan and Amber. They hid in their city Adelan for centuries. I'm talking a long, long time. So Medusa and her little sister Crystal were actually cousins to Black Bolt, Maximus, Gorgon, Karnak, and Triton. Yeah, I said cousins. She was lined up to marry Black Bolt, you know, some royal Game of Thrones type storyline in Adelan. So Black Bolt was supposed to take the throne, but due to his destructive voice, he had to be isolated for years. They're like, shh, get out of here, shut up. That is until his 19th birthday when his father, Agon, let him leave isolation. He then reunited with Medusa, cue the feelings, and they fell in love. And while Black Bolt's brother was jealous, he of course wanted the throne and Medusa. So, we love jealous family here. Thanos and HELA. Thanos loves death, but sometimes the love just doesn't work out. So who else to go to after death has rejected you, right? Well, how about the goddess of death? There's a start. Close enough, I'd say. So in Unworthy Thor issue 5, we find HELA, Queen of Niflheim, mistress of the damned and the dead departed, try and retake her kingdom. So she offers Thanos the one thing in the world that he desires more than anything, death. Yeah. And the two share a passionate kiss as well. After, of course, knocking out Black Swan and killing Proxima at midnight. Yeah, if you want to get the attention of the Mad Titan, the best way to do it apparently is through violence and chaos, which we'll see more of on this list, I'm sure. I'm very sure. Number 7, Destiny and Mystique. Raven Darkholme, using her powers to survive since she was only 12 years old, and Irene Adler, also at a young age of 13. Irene spent 13 months writing these diaries of what she saw, and by the time she was done, completely blind, right? So she could see into the future, and then she would scribble out all these journals. She would write down everything that she saw in said journals. But by the time she was finished, she was completely blind, so she needed the help of Detective Darkholme. They then realized that they're both not so different after all, especially given the idea that they both formed their own brotherhood of mutants. So fans speculated for a while that the two were more than just friends. By the way, they danced, talked, act together, the whole shebang. I mean, they raised Rogue together as well. I mean, they were together, in our hearts at least. Destiny is the only member of the Brotherhood that Raven calls friend when she's first introduced in X-Men issue 141. Simply as that, just a friend. But the History of the Marvel Universe issue 2, it's confirmed that they were perhaps closer this entire time. Number 6, Vanessa and Wilson Fisk. Vanessa made her first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 84, and Kingpin, he's wild. He's like a top tier villain for both Spider-Man and Daredevil. Like, he doesn't play around. So we're looking right now mostly at the relationship that the two shared in the Netflix series Daredevil. So spoilers included if you haven't seen it yet. Vanessa, played by Ayelet Zurer, isn't a supervillain per se, but she's very much on board with Wilson's ways. See, in the first season, she actually motivates him to be, well, more of a bad guy. That's his whole arc, right? She was an art dealer originally, then they got married. Then she found out about his criminal empire, and she stuck with him ever since and went through quite a bit together, including almost being poisoned, which is, I mean, yeah, she almost got poisoned. And she's like, yeah, this guy's great, I'm gonna stick with him. His company's nice. Vanessa keeps him in line emotionally. And if you're upset at Vanessa, you better look out, because Kingpin will literally kill you in return. He's cool like that, you know? Number 5, Black Adam and ISIS. With news of the upcoming Black Adam movie in the works with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson set to star the Shazam villain, we gotta talk about him and Adriana Tomaz. In 2006, during the 52 storyline, Adriana was given to Black Adam as a gift from Intergang. She was originally meant to serve him, and in return, Intergang can use Kandak as a location for their criminal deeds. So Black Adam witnessed slavery a lot firsthand, so he wasn't too fond of this idea. So he ended up freeing her and killing her captors. After her necklace was returned, she was granted the powers of the Egyptian god, Isis. Then of course they got married, their bond is strong, and when Adriana's brother Amon was captured by Intergang, Black Adam gave him some of his own powers in order to become Osiris. So that's huge, that's his family. Adriana is similar to Vanessa in a way. She too keeps their lid on their man's temper. Number 4, Titania and the Absorbing Man. Carl Creo, aka the Absorbing Man, made his introduction into comics with Journey into Mystery issue 114. And he's quite interesting. And by that I mean he's had a rocky start. See, he got arrested for aggravated assault and extortion, and while serving his time, Loki was searching for a likely agent on the planet of mortals, that planet being Earth, and that mortal being Carl Creel. So Mary McFerrin was introduced in Secret Wars issue 3 as the villain Titania. So they both met, and then once Secret Wars ended, they returned to Earth, part of the Masters of Evil. Then time passed and the two got married. Nice. They became less and less violent after that point. See, they just wanted to hang out with one another and keep each other company. They wanted to just lay low and not be the most violent people ever. See, that's all you need in life. I mean, one day you're breaking out of prison, then the next day you just want to make banana pancakes and watch House. That's what love does. Number 3, Namor and Emma Frost. This relationship began in the Fear Itself storyline and carried out through Dark Reign. So Emma was asked to join Norman Osborn's super club, okay? He wanted a psychic on the team because apparently it kept everybody honest, which not a bad idea. And speaking of honesty, Emma at this point thinks that Scott is keeping something from her, X-Force. She feels like Scott is pushing her away and they're not partners and leaders and she's simply just his girlfriend, right? So Emma joins the meeting with Norman, and it's there that she reveals that she and Prince Namor share a romantic history. When Sebastian Shaw sent Emma to convince Namor to join the Hellfire Club, instead Namor takes her to his kingdom and they began a relationship. I mean, come on, dude, there's plenty of other fish in the sea. Literally, you should know this of all people. Number 2, General Zod and Ursa. General Zod, of course, is Superman's greatest foe, ever since Krypton's final days when he survived the destruction of the planet in the Phantom Zone. Jor-El transported Zod, Ursa, and Non there, so when the planet blew up, they were safe. Only Kal-El was left other than those 3. Now, during this time in the Phantom Zone, Zod and Ursa discovered part of an old Kryptonian prison floating around. So inside the prison, time passed normally, so Zod and Ursa decided to mate, have a kid, and then raise the kid in this prison. Because in the prison, he could age normally, right? So Lord Zod was a physical tether between the material world and theirs. They created the ultimate key, so Lord Zod was launched to Earth from the Phantom Zone, and when he arrived, his ship activated a beacon that freed the other Kryptonians. Yikes. And finally, number 1, Venom and Eddie Brock. You ever see a couple together and then all of a sudden they start to become like one unit? Like they're a team, they have like this mixed sense of humor, they're like one person. It's the best thing when two people fall in love. But when it comes to the Clintar race and Eddie Brock, well, let's just say they got closer than ever. Making its debut in Amazing Spider-Man issue 299, Venom is a symbiote from the Clintar race. After making its way to Earth, it wound up in the hands of Spider-Man. Now this didn't last too long because the symbiote found its ideal host, that being Edward Brock. Now because it had originally bonded with Spider-Man, he basically became another version of a Spider-Man. Just evil. So Eddie at this point wasn't a fan of Peter Parker at all. So when the two of them merged, it was perfect. He gained knowledge of the symbiote's past, that being Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and Venom, well, he was all for it. That jealousy and rage made him the perfect anti-hero, and I'm super excited to see the second Venom movie with Carnage. Woody Harrelson will make a great villain. And I'm sure Venom and Eddie are going to be the best time ever taking him down, so I can't wait.
Starting us off at number 10 is Menace from the Marvel Universe. Formerly engaged to Harry Osborn, Lily Hollister is the infamous villain Menace. Let me start off by saying not only is Menace a terrible parent, but also a terrible partner. After crashing and attacking 2 police officers at a political rally for her father, Menace was brought down by fiancé Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin, who then injected serum into her body to change her back to Lily. She was then immediately arrested and brought to jail. Once she got out of jail, she immediately told Harry that she was pregnant and moving on by dating his father, Norman. Oh, and by the way, the child wasn't Harry's, it was his dad's. Before the child is even born, she subjects the child to a life of goblin genes. But just wait. She was lying all along, and after a blood test run by Spider-Man, it is proven that her baby named Stanley is Harry's son after all. In the end, Menace decides to abandon her baby, feeling unfit to be a parent and fearing it would be in more danger if she stayed. Best parenting choice I think she ever made. Coming in at number 9, we have Kraven the Hunter. With the casting of Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven the Hunter in the new movie set to release in 2023, Kraven has been on my mind quite a bit. But before we go out to theaters or home theaters to watch it, I think we should get to know first what kind of parent this guy really is. Back in 1997, in the Spectacular Spider-Man number 243, it was revealed that Kraven the Hunter had a son with another mutant. They named their son Alexei Kravinoff, who grew up to be a much bigger threat to Spider-Man than his father. That being said, Alexei wasn't as obsessed with killing Spider-Man like his father, but was actually just obsessed with outsmarting him. Great, another intelligent evil villain to take care of. It's not like Spidey's plate wasn't full enough already. Continuing on, it was later revealed that Alexei actually had another half-sibling named Anastasia Kravinoff that took on the Kraven the Hunter name, and she actually killed Alexei in the Grim Hunt storyline. Long story short, this Hunter guy had 2 kids and never introduced them, and once they finally did meet, one of them killed the other. I think it's safe to say he failed his parenting class in high school. At number 8, we have Carnage. Another upcoming Marvel movie set to release later this year, Venom Let There Be Carnage has all of us excited about seeing the famous Marvel villain on the big screen, but once again, I feel like we need to get to know this guy as a parent first. So, let's get to it. Most of us know that Carnage is just a massive evil blob born of Venom and that the symbiotes breed without the need of a mate. So naturally, that made Carnage give the birth to another symbiote known as Toxin. Now, what's the difference between Toxin and the other two? Toxin actually attached itself to a police officer known as Patrick Milligan. Toxin decided to be a hero and protect New York City, and even became friends with our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But wait, does that mean Carnage was actually a great parent? Absolutely not. When Toxin was about to be born, Carnage attempted to kill it straight away so that he wouldn't have any bigger competition than what he already had with Venom. He tried to kill his own child. Enough said. At number 7, we leave the Marvel and DC universes altogether to go to one of my favorite universes of all time, Shredder from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Also known as Oroku Saki, the parent of Oroku Karai, or Karai as she is most commonly known. Later on down the line, Karai becomes the leader of the terribly violent Foot Clan. But on her way to the top, she is Shredder's adopted daughter who works her way to become Chunin, aka second in command to Master Shredder. After using ancient powers and higher beings to brainwash Leonardo of the TMNT, Shredder makes Leo his one and only Chunin, thus stripping Karai of the coveted title. Oh yeah, I left out that Shredder is actually an ancient ancestor to Karai, and when she becomes the Foot Clan leader for the first time, she is visited by Shredder in a dream to resurrect him as the rightful leader. Can you imagine being boss and then being forced to leave and then being demoted by your own father? Oh, and then battling him in the ultimate duel after? Yeah, this guy sucks, dude. But can't deny is a super cool villain. At number 6, we return back to the DC universe with Big Daddy Deathstroke. I've talked about Deathstroke in one of my previous videos before, and like I said, he might be one of the most coolest BA villains I have ever known. That being said, he is still a terrible parent. Not only did he abandon his daughter and leave her in foster care, when he did finally decide to be close to her, he made her join in on his villainous adventures. But first, she had to prove herself worthy to him. So what did she do? She gouged her eye out. She then replaced it with a kryptonite eye so it would help them defeat Superman. But guess what? The kryptonite eye was slowly killing her, so obviously she decided to rebel against her father. I will say, Slade aka Deathstroke did eventually give her the serum that helped make him the ultimate villain, so that seems pretty cool I guess, and maybe a good way to apologize, but maybe I'm only saying that because I secretly want to have the abilities of Deathstroke too. Still a bad parent though. Coming in at number 5, we have Marvel Universe's Red Skull. The famous Captain America villain Red Skull, former head of Hydra, notorious and all-around bad guy, also happens to be a terrible parent. No surprise there. Red Skull's daughter is named Cynthia Schmidt, or Sin for short. Sin. We as humans are told not to sin. Don't be sinful. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Yeah, a little on the nose there, guys. Cynthia was known as a beast of a child, and that's how she earned the respect of her father. Because why would any parent just automatically respect and care for their child in the first place? Am I right? Red Skull used his Deus Machina to age his daughter into adulthood and made Sin the mother of 4 orphan girls who were taught to praise Mama Sin as a goddess. Eventually, she grew into taking over Red Skull's legacy, but was ultimately defeated by Captain America. Way to go, Red Skull. Way to set your daughter up for success and robbing her of her childhood. Jerk. At number 4, we have the infamous and personal favorite Marvel villain of mine, Loki. I know most of our eyes light up when we say this name because it reminds us of that dreamy Tom Hiddleston man, but please don't forget, the character he plays is the god of mischief and a terrible parent. Loki, the ever so mischievous brother of Thor, had a hard time finding a partner in Asgard. So what did he do? He went down to Earth and did the bow chicka wow wow with a mortal who was unknown. Thus, out of his little trip down to Earth, he had a son by the name of Val Halfling, also known as Agamemnon, James, or Aggie. Dude, just pick one already. Val was known to be a bit of a pain to the rest of the gods and has messed with the Egyptian, Hindu, and Greek pantheons throughout the quest for power. Of course, all of this was greatly admired by Loki, and I think it's safe to say he is a pretty bad influence and not fit to be a parent. But hey, how many gods throughout all of time have turned out to be good parents anyway? My point exactly. Starting us off in our top 3 is the old baldy himself, Lex Luthor. No offense to any of our bald fans out there, just as long as you're not a super evil genius. And if you are, come at me. Old Lexi Luthor has a couple of kids. After the death of Superman carried out by Doomsday, Project Cadmus organized for a clone to be made up of half Superman and half Lex Luthor. The result? Superboy, aka Connor Kent. The other child was Alexander Luthor Jr., the son of Lex Luthor and Lois Lane Luthor of Earth 3. On Earth 3, Lex is a good guy fighting an evil version of the Justice League. He then sends Jr. to Earth 1 to keep him safe, but while there, Jr. gets in touch with his dark side. Eventually, Luthor Jr. creates the Society of Supervillains and even brings about the death of Shazam. So, Luthor created one supervillain and one clone with his arch nemesis. Doesn't sound like the best start to fatherhood if you ask me. Coming in at number 2 is the ever so popular Conqueror of Galaxies, Thanos. Thanos is father to tons of children, but most of them have died under his care, or should I say lack thereof. First example of being a terrible parent. Not one, but most of your children die in your care? Yikes, dude. Eventually, Thanos does have a child with a member of the Inhumans who then escaped to her homeworld and gave birth to a child. His name was Thane, son of Thanos. Once Thanos discovered that he actually had a son out there in the universe, he left on a mission to go find Thane while wiping out any civilization that got in his way. After being exposed to a Terrigen bomb, Thane went on to replace Thanos as ruler of the universe. I gotta say, You have to be proud of Thane for accomplishing that much without the help of a good father figure in his life. Thane, if no one's told you, I'm proud of you, son. That's my boy. And finally, coming in at our #1 spot for villains who are terrible parents, we have a duo, Joker and Harley Quinn. Now, okay, do I even need to go into this one? I mean, even though these are arguably two of pop culture's favorite supervillains of all time, is it not clear by the absolute violent chaos that these two create, the very on again, off again, and sometimes abusive relationship that these two have, that they would be god-awful parents? Maybe. In Tom Taylor's Injustice Gods Among Us Year 2, issue number 13, Harley backs down from a fight with the Black Canary after discovering that Canary is pregnant. Harley relates it back to her own life because she has a 4-year-old daughter with the Joker that is being taken care of by her sister. Because needless to say, the life of Harley and Joker is definitely not the life for any child in its formative years. Let alone any year. Harley also keeps her daughter's existence a secret from the Joker in fear for her life. Even though I still believe these two are terrible parents, you can't deny the love that Harley has for her little one, and honestly I think keeping her baby safe shows a little bit of her humanity. But the Joker is still terrible.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have HELA. Earth 1610 is home to the Ultimates, and in Ultimatum issue 2, we see this version of HELA make her debut. So at this point, in order to release Valkyrie from Valhalla, HELA forced Thor to fight her army of undead soldiers. So after that goes down, Thor's like, okay, cool, is there anything else I can do before I head out? You know, should I change a couple kegs? Maybe should I dust? Anything to get Valkyrie out of here, let's go. And then she starts undressing. HELA starts undressing, and then she starts to explain to Thor that she needs a heir to the throne. So he's like, okay. So he follows through, he does it, but then afterwards, HELA tells him some more information. So in order to release someone from Valhalla, somebody has to take their place, a soul for a soul in a way. So that soul to take Thor's place in order for him to leave was Valkyrie. Oof. So this son that they had was none other than Modi Thorson, and his journey begins with New Ultimates issue 5. And before we go on to number 9, guys, if you could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, it really does help us a lot at the studio / our home studio for the time being up here in Canada. But all those likes add up and do us wonders, so thank you so much for your support. Now let's get back to the list. Number 9, Mystique. She was mentioned in All New X-Men issue 27, but this Mystique was from Earth 13729, and most of her character is the same, only this time around, she had a child with Charles Xavier, and they named that child Charles Xavier 2, because, you know, that's how villains do it. So they felt as if they were unfit to raise a child, so they gave that child away. But later on, Mystique had another child, this time with a cooler name. The name was Raze. Now this child's father was Wolverine, so he's a bit more exciting, you know? And by exciting, I mean he grew up resenting his parents and eventually took out his mother and replaced her without anybody knowing. Cool. So Raze's shape-shifting powers is stronger than his mother's, and he clearly has some rage issues like his father. In X-Men, No More Humans, Raze had this ultimate plan. He was gonna basically try and remove the human population from Earth and instead fill that spot rather with mutants from other multiverses. So it would have been a multiverse mutant paradise. So evil, but he's got some good ideas, I think, maybe. Number 8, Carnage. Making his first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 360, Carnage is a symbiote that is the offspring of Venom, and its host is none other than Cletus Cassidy. Now Cletus was sharing the same prison cell as Eddie Brock in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 344, so while Cletus was planning on stabbing Eddie Brock, the Venom symbiote comes to rescue Eddie, but after Brock is reunited with the Venom symbiote and it breaks out, a piece of that symbolic material attached itself to Cletus. It was left behind. So now Cletus became Carnage. And Carnage is terrifying, honestly. I'm actually really looking forward to the movie. I hope it's scary in some way, but like, he's a terrifying guy. So Carnage is this brutal offspring of Venom, and then Toxin is now a brutal offspring of Carnage. They're all having kids, that's right. And then in Venom vs. Carnage issue 2, symbiote number 1000 is born. So Toxin is actually said to be one of the strongest and most dangerous symbiote there is. So isn't that lovely? Number 7, Menace. Lily Hollister first entered Marvel Comics in Amazing Spider-Man 545. And she's the daughter of District Attorney William Hollister, and at the time, she was dating Harry Osborn. But then she stumbled across this secret door in Harry's closet, and then after poking around, she discovered some goblin tech. And then after knocking over some experimental chemicals, she absorbed them onto her skin, and then was now able to turn into this menace. Literally, her name was Menace. And things got even more wild when she got pregnant with Norman's kid. And that son was Stanley Osborn. Now, since his parents had both been exposed to the Goblin formula, the boy's blood had literally had a price tag on it. So the criminal underworld wanted to get their hands on that sweet, sweet evil DNA. Dr. Octopus almost kidnapped Stanley, but luckily Peter knows how to hold a baby while he does parkour, which is amazing. This whole issue is just amazing. Number 6, parents of the Runaways. This next one is a combo piece. Okay, so the Runaways are a group of 6 kids. They were the children of these parents who would meet up once a year for this charity thing. So they were kids, so it just sounded like some adult boring stuff, right? But then one day those kids went to take a peek as to what they were really doing, and they spied and found out that they were the Pride. No, not Simba's Pride, nothing like that. The Pride was a criminal group filled with villains, like time travelers, dark wizards, aliens, mutants, you name it. Just a whole plethora of fun. So they didn't even know it, but they were children of a villain group the whole time. So they ended up stealing their parents' super tech, and then of course being the offspring of these super powered folk, they too had powers. So they combined their forces of their own and they set out to undo the damage that their evil parents had started. So that's a good case scenario, we like that, that's good stuff. Number 5, Genesis. She made her first debut in X of Swords Stasis issue 1. She's the wife of Apocalypse, and she served as a warlord by his side in Okara. Now the children were a bit different than most on this list. Their children became the first horsemen. So when Okara was being attacked by the Amenthi, Genesis ran the show. She led the mutants into battle, and they came out on top. They won. Then the elder god Annihilation offered a peace treaty. That's how you know she kicks ass, when the dark god of Amenth is like, truce? So when Genesis' sister betrayed her and her people and sided with the Amenth, Genesis moved to the Amenth and then made the sacrifice, being sealed away in Amenth with those first horsemen. I said Amenth a lot, but yeah, she ended up being sealed there with her children. It was pretty dark. Number 4, Elektra. So for this one, we go over to the MC2 universe, where Elektra married Wolverine, and then soon after, of course, came a child. Now that daughter was named Rena Logan, and if that name doesn't ring a bell, she was also referred to as Wild Thing, for good reason. Yeah, let me explain. So Rena's powers are very similar to her father's, obviously. I mean, even just by looking at her, you could probably make a guess who she's an offspring of. But she also possesses the power of regenerative healing and super strength. So what makes her stand out is the psychic claws, the psychic size rather. Her minor psionic powers allow her to manifest her own claws, which is similar to Cyclops. She can inflict mental damage, but if she focused hard enough, she can have claws like her father and dish out physical damage too. Number 3, Vanessa Fisk. Vanessa made her first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 84. They met when she was only 15 years old, and not gonna lie, it's pretty dark. She was brought to him by his goon squad, and Wilson saw her natural sense of grace and depth, so they became partners, which sounds like a classic love story, but she was brought in for like awful reasons. She was gonna be used for like labor. It's just not great. She was 15, like come on dude. Now of course Kingpin is a top tier villain in both Spider-Man and Daredevil's lives, and Vanessa would mostly be on board with his evil deeds in the future. I mean, the odd time she'd be like, maybe don't do that specifically. But most of the time she was like, let's do it, Criminal Empire, all aboard. So once they had Richard, Kingpin got even more protective of her, right? This kid Richard was actually sent away by Wilson and Vanessa. He was sent to Switzerland to go to school. He studied hard, he stayed in shape, but he bragged about how rich his father was. He was one of those guys, you know? So when he turned on the news and saw that his dad was being exposed as this kingpin of crime, he was like, damn it, I gotta get out of here. I've talked way too much. He disappeared into the wilderness and he was never seen again until the next issue when he came back as a villain named the Schemer in Amazing Spider-Man issue 85. Number 2, Harness. She made her first comic book debut in New Mutants Annual 7. Her real name is Erica Benson, and she's the mother of the mutant Piecemeal who had merged with Proteus. Now her son wasn't named Piecemeal, of course. He didn't just pop out as an evil villain. He was named Gilbert, which is a great name. It sounds very friendly. He was just cursed to have to carry around part of the villain Proteus around with him in his soul. When AIM discovered this, they got Erica to take Gilbert all around the world to absorb more of these parts of Proteus, like dragging a magnet through sand to one day have this villain reborn thanks to Gilbert. She was cruel to Gilbert on purpose. She wanted this reborn villain to be as evil as possible, so she tried to be as awful as she could. Abuse in every way, I mean, it was awful. Harness is not a great mother. Poor Gilbert. And number 1, Loki. Yeah, you heard me. Okay, this one's a little bit of a stretch, I'll admit, but it's too wild not to talk about, so I'm gonna talk about it. I'm not sure when I'm gonna bring this up again, so let's do it. Loki is the shape-shifting god of mischief. He takes on all sorts of fun appearances. Like in Thor Ragnarok, there's a fun little scene where Thor thought he was picking up a snake, and it was actually Loki. Good, clean comedy. So he does it often. But at one point in the comics, in order to prevent having to pay a debt, Loki turned himself into a horse, and then while he was a horse, he gave birth to an 8-legged animal that became a fan favorite of Odin's, a horse named Sleipnir. So yeah, of course I gotta finish with that one. Loki's giving birth to a horse. So I hope that image lives in your head rent-free as well as it does mine.